As a whole, the Negro market has a total income of about $15 billion every year. And after taxes, Negro families still have many billions of dollars to spend.
Here is what sales psychologists have to say about selling to the Negro.
But perhaps because he's had so little of it, the Negro needs even more. He needs to feel important and appreciated. The secret of selling to the Negro is expressed in one word.
Oh my gosh, black people, if you ever needed any more proof, here is a video from almost 70 years ago showing the very specific psychological factors that are used by the media, these conglomerates, and the entertainment industry, all to target you. Man, welcome back to another episode of the Ruling Class Podcast. And of course, I'm your host, Didi, back up in this bitch. What another video. And listen, I'm thirsty to grow and to drink some of this water. You can help me out by liking this video, subscribing, sharing this video, commenting on this video, hitting the notification bell so you can be notified every time I post a new video. But don't worry, I'm going to give you a sec to do that. Help me out. At least hit that like button. All right, so listen, this video right here is specifically for my wokety woke black people. You know, my social justice or social justice warrior, whatever you want to call them, that hop in my comment section and want to verbally assault me just because I'm questioning black people, because I question black celebrities and I question things that happen in the real world, right? Just because I'm questioning people and I have issues with how things go. This video is for you because you like to say things like, well, what are you doing in real life? Like you don't have access to my social media and you can look at what I'm doing in the community in real life. You like to say things like, well, all you do is criticize. You don't ever talk about the good. Well, here's a video that I think does both. There's a video from 1954. 1954 that is called, just wait for it, The Secret of Selling the Negro. The what? The who? What you call me? Yeah, the Negro. The Secret of Selling to You. Let's see what they're talking about.
Hello, I'm Bob Trout. I've got a story here that I think is big, really big, because it's bound to have a terrific impact on business. I'm talking about a new market, a big new market, millions upon millions of new prospects with $15 billion to spend. That's right, I said $15 billion. That's a lot of money, isn't it? The surprising thing is that it's a fresh market, still full of opportunities. It grew up so fast, got so big in a hurry, that few of us realize its scope. Now, these days, nobody's likely to pass up chances to sell. And yet right here in our own front yard, there's a neglected market. There's money waiting to be spent. To get the story of this market, to be able to tell you the secret of selling the Negro, we did a lot of digging. We talked to leading businessmen, to customers, and to salesmen. We went to Washington, D.C. We set up cameras and other key points around the nation. And out of this all, there emerged a story, the story of a new market. Yes, this is the market we're talking about, the new Negro family. Their name is Wells or Wilson, Smith or Brown or Alexander or Breen. They live in Chicago, in Atlanta or New York, in Detroit, St. Louis.
Let me just stop this earlier to say, if you haven't already noticed, look at this, a two-parent home. You can already see there's both a father and a mother, which is, if you don't know why I'm mentioning it, right, it's not very common in the so-called black community anymore. And I also want to say, notice that they have a video called How to Sell the Negro from 1954. So this is before social media, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, Google. There was none of that. They had newspaper, radio, and word of mouth. That was it. And they were still able to put together a video like this. So I'm very interested to see what they're about to say.
Los Angeles, any one of 1,000 cities and towns. All over the country, families such as this are enjoying new prosperity. They have new interests, new standards of living, a buying power they've never enjoyed before. They're good prospects for practically all types of goods and services. All too often, though, they're overlooked prospects. Why? Because of some good, valid reason? No. They're overlooked because of mistaken ideas, because of out-of-date ideas about how the Negro lives and how he buys. The truth of the matter is that the Negro lives pretty much the same as other folks. He buys pretty much the same way, too. But just the same, a lot of old doubts and opinions keep cropping up over and over again.
I don't like to do business with Negroes. They're drifters. You can't keep track of them.
Yes, although a lot of people think that way, the truth is that 1 out of every 3 Negro families living in cities today owns its own home. That figure comes directly from the United States Bureau of Census.
You hear that?
Maybe so, but Negroes are poor credit risks.
Not more of a credit risk than any other group. Actually, the Negro homebuyer meets his payments faithfully, often more faithfully than other race groups in the same economic level. That's the information we got from people who ought to know, the National Association of Real Estate Boards.
Well, maybe, but I've always heard that Negroes buy shoddy, poor-quality merchandise.
No, it's just the other way around. According to leading researchers, in proportion to population and income, Negroes buy more quality products than any other comparable United States group. You see, there are a lot of confused notions about the Negro customer. But when you dig right down and find out about them, they just don't hold water. Negroes own homes. They meet their payments faithfully. They buy good brands of merchandise. So why let a lot of old-fashioned ideas hurt profits?
So what have we already learned? We learned that 1954, so this was before the Civil Rights era, we learned that so-called black people had 2-parent homes. So-called black people had better credit, were much more financially responsible. They owned homes. We've already learned that already. And we learned that a lot of people, that being so-called white people in dominant positions, had these predispositions due to outdated rumors and gossip, and beliefs about so-called black people that were actually not true. And if you look at the numbers, it said otherwise. But if you look at today, we're the exact opposite of what we were in the 1950s.
Take a look at the real facts. Here in Washington, D.C., the nation's capital, some amazing facts and figures about this new market have been uncovered. For a first-hand report, we would like to take you directly to the United States Department of Commerce to hear this story from the Secretary of Commerce himself. Here is the Honorable Sinclair Weeks, the Secretary of Commerce of the United States.
In the Department of Commerce, we are constantly alert to trends that mean a healthier national economy, better business for the nation as a whole. Recently, we have been interested in a rising young market, one that represents a huge potential for goods and services. I'm referring to the new Negro market. The tremendous buying power of this group is backed, of course, by an increased earning power. The average Negro family's income is at a record high. In fact, since 1939, it has increased more than the average income of all other Americans. Just take a look at a few figures. An official Department of Commerce report shows that at least 1/3 of the Negroes living in cities earn from $2,000 to $5,000 a year. Today, the average Negro wage earner brings home a paycheck 4 times larger than the one he collected in 1939. As a whole, the Negro market has a total income of about $15 billion every year. And after taxes, Negro families still have many billions of dollars to spend. Here is a buying power that cannot help but have a tremendous effect on our national economy and on business prosperity in general. When these dollars are spent for a wide range of goods, services, and employment, business everywhere is bound to feel the impact.
We have that impact.
This new buying power has resulted in a class Negro market, a profitable, above-average income group of consumers. For example, the nation's largest newspaper and magazine research organization, Daniel Starch and Staff, reports these significant figures. More than 51% of the readers of Ebony magazine have a record player in their homes. Almost 64% own a television set. And almost 78% enjoy the convenience of an electric refrigerator. It is also a fact, and this is from the magazine The Food Field Reporter, that Negroes spend almost $3 billion a year for food alone. Per capita, they buy more cosmetics, drugs, and toiletries than anyone else in the country. And their children are better educated, too, because since 1930, enrollment in Negro colleges is up 2,500%. But really, to recognize the importance of this class Negro market, we must realize that something has been happening economically in our country. People are on the move. The population is shifting. The makeup of metropolitan populations today is different than it was just a few short years ago. To give you a better idea of what we mean, we set up several cameras, candid cameras, in a number of shopping locations. Take a look at these shoppers. Notice what a large proportion of them are Negroes. What's the reason? It's simply this. Negro families are moving into the cities where there are more job opportunities. Here they find occupations with more prestige and security, jobs that pay more money. As a result, Negro families today often make up the largest part of central city consumer prospects. A shoe store in Chicago's Loop, for example, reports that more than 50% of its customers are Negroes. In another case, a drugstore located at a transfer point in a non-Negro neighborhood finds that its Negro customers total 25%. The trend is plain. The new Negro families today are moving into more populated areas, to the cities, where there are more stores, more buying opportunities.
Keep in mind, this is something that they were able to tell from in the 1950s. This is before like any type of social media or Google or advanced analytical data that we have. They were able to tell all of this. How many people, what we were interested in, what we like to buy. That's very scary, you know what I mean? And you talk about $15 billion, that means money wasn't an issue. It's just a matter of where we're putting our money, where we're placing our money, where we're spending our money, and what we're doing with our money. So it's not that we were poor. As a matter of fact, we were a far less poor before the civil rights era. That's what's crazy about this. But we're not told this a lot of times. We're made to believe, we're taught that slavery is pretty much as far back as our history goes. But when you watch something like this, it's the opposite.
1940, in San Francisco alone, the Negro market has increased by 89%. But we all know that before you can sell to customers, you've got to get to know them. You must understand something about them. What do the Negro customers buy? Why do they buy? How do you sell to them? Let's find out. Let's hear the opinion of men who have spent a lifetime studying the buying habits of customers the world over. Here's what sales psychologists have to say about selling to the Negro.
The secret of selling to the Negro is expressed in one word. That word is recognition. Now, there's
Bingo.
nothing unusual about that. People want to be recognized. They need recognition.
Did you hear that? Recognition. And for those of you out there who don't understand what that means a lot of times when we buy things, we do it not because it's what we want, not because it's what we value, but because we're doing it for what we want other people to think about it. We're doing it because we want to see what our friends, because we feel like our friends may like it. That girl may like what we bought, not because it has any real value. So this has always been a problem in our community, buying stuff for recognition purposes. Now, as a human, there's nothing wrong with doing that to an extent. But in our community, it gets carried away. Look at today. We spend our money on a lot of things that don't matter, like jewelry and cars, right? Because the representation that we're shown in the media is what? Rappers, right? Entertainers, right? That's what I mean. We spend our money on things that don't matter because of what we want other people to think about us. It's like it's validated. It's a status thing.
That's basic in all of us. But perhaps because he's had so little of it, the Negro needs even more. He needs to feel important and appreciated.
Wow.
This need is a very real and important one.
Wow.
It shows up even in many of the Negro's shopping habits. Anyone who sells or wants to sell to the Negro customer should know about some of these habits. 3 habits in particular play a big part in every sales transaction. To begin with, most Negroes buy by brand. They ask for products by name. They're quick to turn down off-brands. Do you wonder why? Well, listen to what this customer is thinking.
That last hat I bought, Just didn't hold up at all.
You see, for a long time, the Negro has been sold a lot of shoddy, second-class merchandise. So now he asks for name brands in order to make sure he gets his money's worth. Buying by brand, that's the first important Negro buying habit.
Wow. You mean to tell me in the 1950s they knew that a lot of so-called black people bought things that were name brand? And the psychological reasoning behind it, that being for a long time we were, gave hand-me-downs and we had very little. So now that we have any type of money, we want to buy the best of the best for a status. It's like a status boost, right? It's like an ego boost. It's like it's an insecurity. It's a void that we're feeling because for so long we weren't accepted, or for so long we felt like we couldn't get it. But now that we are able to get it, we want to make up for that lost time. They knew this in the 1950s. So imagine what they're doing now in 2022 when they're putting these rappers and things like that in front of our face to promote things that are not important. All this materialism. Think about that. Just think about it for a sec.
Now for the second. The Negro buys good quality merchandise. Symbols of quality and prestige are very important to the Negro customer. This woman, for example, is buying fine crystalware. But she is also buying the admiration and approval of her friends and relatives. Listen to her thoughts.
My, isn't it beautiful? I can hardly wait to show it to Sally and Joan.
It's a well-known fact that many Negro customers are influenced by the opinions of others. What their friends may think of a certain item often decides whether or not the sale is made. So remember, the Negro buys quality merchandise. That's the second important point. And here's the third thing to remember when selling to a Negro customer. When he specifically asks for one thing, don't try to sell him something else. Don't try to switch him at the point of sale. If you do, he'll probably react something like this.
Doesn't he think I've got the money to pay for it?
There's a reason for this reaction. Again, because he's had experience with cheap merchandise, the Negro resents being offered a substitute. He wants to be sold on quality, not price. The Negro buys by brand, he buys quality, and he doesn't like to be switched at point of sale. These are the keys to selling the Negro customer.
And we all know that just because something is name brand does not mean that it's going to necessarily last longer, or doesn't even necessarily mean that it's a better material or better quality, right? It just has a much more popular name and a higher price tag. They know what to market to us, even though they know these things are not important. I don't want to keep repeating myself, but that's very important because it plays a role into how things are portrayed in the entertainment industry. They know how to market to you.
Another point. The Negro family does things together, as a group. The family works as a unit. It lives as a unit, and it buys as a unit. When you sell to one member, you many times sell to all. It's also true that many places of entertainment are still closed to the Negro. So he spends more of his money for the things that are available to him, often for items that are considered luxuries. Another trait of the Negro market is the fact that it is a pre-sold market. We know that the Negro buys by brand, and he buys the brands that he knows something about. Where does the Negro buyer get this information? We know that Negro customers are turning more and more to the publications that are tailored specifically to their needs, that give them
Bingo.
the news and the information that they want to read about. Many leading businessmen and companies already know this. That's why so many of them are taking this direct, sure route of reaching the Negro customer. The vice president of advertising of the Gruen Watch Company, for example, says this.
In many important cities throughout the United States, Negroes are important customers of the credit jeweler. Therefore, it seemed that Ebony magazine would be a very important advertising medium for us. We would say it was very well received, and from our viewpoint, a very successful campaign.
From the Remington Rand Company comes this statement.
Our records show that advertising in Ebony has been effective in many ways. As all good advertising should, it has built a terrific amount of goodwill and has brought a volume of sales and sales inquiries.
A representative of the Alaga
Wow.
Syrup Company makes this statement.
Because of Alaga's regard for the influence of ebony in the Negro market, advertising space was doubled. Alaga's long experience in selling to Negroes now takes the most direct route to its best customers, reaching ebony's 2.5 million audience in every issue.
And here are the statements of still other business leaders.
Yes, many business leaders are discovering the most direct and most efficient way of reaching the new Negro market. Look here at the results of the same advertisement in two different publications, Ebony and another general magazine. You can see that proportionately, more men and women read the ad in Ebony than the one in the other magazine. And they did a better job of remembering it, too.
Wow. People, I don't even know where to begin here. So as many of you out there probably know already, one of my degrees is in psychology. I've shared this in a couple of videos. So one of my degrees is in psychology. And if this is not the epitome of using psychological war games on a group of people to target them, right? Which isn't necessarily sinister in its nature. It's a part of business. But in this particular case, I want you to pay attention to how it can be used in a sinister way, right? So first of all, this is why individuality is so important. Because whenever you seem to do this thing called groupthink, or you want to do this thing called identifying with somebody based on superficial factors, such as skin color, such as sexuality, such as gender, such as religion, such as age group, right? Not that those things aren't important, but it's when you place an unprecedented amount of attention and emphasis on those superficial factors, you tend to come a part of this like utopian mindset where you're not thinking about what's best for you because you have the same skin color with somebody. As the popular saying go, all skin folk ain't kinfolk. All kinfolk ain't skinfolk. We all know that. So look at this. What does this remind me of? So in other words, they took Ebony magazine. They put what they wanted to market to so-called black people because they know where so-called black people go, and that's how they sold their products. What does this remind me of? This reminds me of Black Lives Matter, the organization, right? You put the words Black Lives Matter in the name of your organization, you know that's going to draw a lot of black people to you. It's like putting a black woman on syrup, right? The popular syrup brand, right? As a lot of you out there may be familiar with. It wasn't owned by black people. But psychologically, subconsciously, that's not what you think. When you look at it, you might think it's black owned. When you look at it, you think that you can relate, right? There's a relatability there. So you want to buy that syrup. It's like Black Lives Matter, the organization. You put the name there, now all of a sudden you want to donate. Now all of a sudden you want to put a fist up in the air. Now all of a sudden you want to do what Black Lives organization is telling you that you should do in response to things that are happening throughout the country. You see what I mean? It's a psychological game. And this is crazy to me that, again, in the 1950s, it was so blatant and so obvious to them. Individuality. This is what I want to stress. Individuality is so important. Don't get so caught up in the group think. Try to think for yourselves, people. And I think a lot of this goes, just look at us today. The things that we glorify, right? When you watch this video, look at the way our men and women dress. So classy, right? So well put together. Today we're half naked. We're twerking all over the place. We got jewelry and we drift in things that do not, value over time. I don't understand, or increase in value over time, I should say. I don't understand these things. We went backwards. We're not going forward. We went backwards. The things that we value, right, are superficial things that do not matter. We've been tricked. And I think this video goes to show the psychological war games that go into, not just into media, not just into the entertainment industry, but down to the food that we eat, right? The clothes that we buy, the things that we watch on social media and how it's marketed to us. It's not a coincidence. That was almost 70 years ago. Imagine where we are now.
Oh yeah, Diddy got a podcast.